Well, good morning, everyone out there in internet land. And it is a beautiful, wonderful Wednesday morning in upstate New York, Binghamton, where you know I don't live. I live in Shenango Bridge, and it's not beautiful and it's not wonderful. It's freezing, but that's okay because in my heart and the way I feel, it's beautiful and wonderful, and I'm going to have a great day. This is Yvonne DeVita from Smart Conversations, and today I have a very, very, very special guest. I met this gentleman on Facebook. Now, everyone knows that I talk routinely about the fact that I meet people on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and build relationships and learn from them and just build my relationship group and my tribe that way. So I keep recommending people do that. Marc, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, and I'll make you feel better. I'm probably the one guest that has a colder, worse weather than where you're at, because I'm in Atlanta, Canada. And today I had to convert it because, of course, we use Celsius, but it converts to minus 27.4 Fahrenheit today. So that's not normal. It'll get milder later this week, but she's a tad chilly right now in Atlanta, Canada.
I was going to complain about 7 degrees. Oh my word. Well, let me tell everybody a little bit more about you, Marc, before we get started. So Marc Mawhinney is a lifelong entrepreneur, and you know how much I favor lifelong entrepreneurs, who helps coaches get more clients without paid advertising. He achieves this with his coaching programs, the popular Natural Born Coaches podcast, his Facebook group, The Coaching Jungle, and his exclusive print newsletter, Secret Coach Club. He's been a speaker at events like Social Media Marketing World, Entrepreneur City Live, and the TP3X conference. You'll have to tell us what that is, Marc. He frequently makes media appearances and contributes to online publications like entrepreneur.com. And he's very friendly and nice because he's going to be on my show today. In 2014, Marc Mawhinney started the Natural Born Coaches podcast because he saw a need for a show that would help coaches grow their businesses without any fluff or BS. Over 700 episodes later, he continues on his quest to give coaches actionable strategies that they can take and put into action to get more clients and customers. And you know what? I've been a member of his Facebook group for a while, and you can learn so much from that group and from this man, regardless of if you're a coach or just a small business owner. And so we're going to talk a little bit about Marc's journey. Marc, tell us kind of how you got started as an entrepreneur.
I don't really have the lemonade stand story that people talk about, or some people, it sounds like they came out of their mother's womb and they were selling something. I did have a paper route when I was, in junior high school and stuff. But basically, in a nutshell, I spent my 20s building up a real estate business. Fresh out of university, I jumped in and ended up building that up to several offices, my own company, roughly 100 agents and employees. Everything was like just hockey stick growth, and then bang, everything collapsed. And it was a very messy closure. And now I didn't have any clue what coaching was really before that. I would have thought it was more athletic stuff because I'm a sports fan. But I was helped back to my feet by several coaches, and I would say mentors in the case of one of them. And in 2014, I was ready to get back into business. And I thought, wow, this would be a great business to be in. I was tired of being stuck in my local sandbox for real estate. And I really wanted to work with people outside of my neck of the woods in Atlanta, Canada. So that's where I started coaching in 2014. And here we are, 8 years later and having fun.
Yeah, fun, but also educational. So the coaching world, when you were helped by coaches or mentors, and you didn't really know anything about it, and I confess, I don't think I did either back in the day, in my early days as a book publisher. But the idea of a coach is good for just about anybody, wouldn't you say?
I would say so. I'm biased, of course, but it's interesting because in my world, it seems like everyone's a coach, right? We're in this bubble
Mhm.
and I try to remind coaches when they say, "Oh my God, there's so much competition or whatever," and I say, "Look, coaching really it's the tip of the iceberg now because the average Joe and Mary Smith." May not know about coaching. And I think that more people will get into that because we've already seen that growth going. So the market's going to be growing. Me, a couple of years before the real estate business closed, a coach came into my real estate office, a business coach, and tried to get me as a client. And I'm, me being a cocky 20 something, that had never experienced any failure, things were going great with the business. I was polite to him, but I thought in my head, like, hey, look at what I built here. Does it look like I need a coach? Now, a couple of years later, everything, collapsed in a ball of fire. And I thought, wow, maybe I should have listened to that coach a little more, and maybe things wouldn't have ended like this if I'd been working with him. So that's the type of person that definitely needs a coach when you think, oh, I'm a lone wolf. I can figure it out myself, because no one can figure it out themselves. It's always tough to when you can't see the forest for the trees when you're too close to the situation.
Absolutely, absolutely. Tell us, define coach for us. What do you think of when someone says coach? I mean, back then you just said you were this cocky 22-year-old, and who needs a coach? I remember when I first became an entrepreneur, I was a bit older than 22, more like 42, and I knew I needed something, so I joined a group, and they were kind of like my coaches. Tell us your explanation of what a coach
Hmm.
does for someone.
It's tough because if I went out in the street and asked 100 coaches to give a definition of coaching, I'd probably get 95 different answers, right? Or
Yeah.
maybe more. Because I've actually asked this question inside my Facebook group, just curious what people are saying. So for mine, the coaching snobs probably wouldn't agree with this. They'd thumb their nose up at this, but I have a really simple definition when it comes to coaching. It's helping a person get from point A to point B, and to get results. And I know that that's not a terribly in-depth answer or anything like that, maybe not a textbook answer, but that's a way that I view coaching. And I don't get too hung up on labels, because what I do, actually, there's even some consulting probably in there
Yes.
with it. So I've often said, okay, I'm a coach consultant, if I smash words together with it. So I don't get too hung up on titles or boxes there. I'm just there to help the client get somewhere where they want to go.
That's really interesting. I kind of resonate with that, because in the world that I'm in, I call myself a book coach, but really what I am is I'm a developmental editor, and then I help produce books. And I make sure that the book, to your point, the author wants a product that's going to serve their business. I work with nonfiction mostly.
Mm.
And so the goal again is to get from point A to point B. I really like that. I think that's a really great description, because for people out there listening and watching this, if you're thinking about starting a business, or you've started one but you're still kind of struggling with it, you need someone to help you get from point A to point B, someone who's been there, done it, kind of like Marc. So Marc, tell us a little bit now about your current world and the coaching that you do and the things you're involved in.
Yeah, so my whole thing is helping coaches. That's my target market. Get more clients without paid ads. So it's organic, not Facebook ads or anything
I
else
love
like
it.
that. Because that's how I had to build my business up. Whereas coming off a business closure, I didn't have access to the funds of war chest that I could pour into expensive ads and dumping tens of thousands of dollars in. So I had to roll up my sleeves and get my message out there the old-fashioned way, organically. And at the time, I thought, "Oh, this is awful. I wish I still had a bunch of money that I could pour into the ads and save a lot of work." But now looking back, there was a silver lining, because it forced me to get really clear on my messaging and to get good at content creation and stuff, because I couldn't just buy my way into more business. And so I've done things since 2016. So about 2 years into my journey, I started doing daily emails. I haven't missed a day yet, knock on wood. That's come from the content creation muscle, 750-ish podcast episodes of my show, stuff like that. So I was grateful for that. Didn't seem like at the time, but it was a good thing that I had to do it organically.
That's really powerful. because I believe in the organic model also. I'm sure that paid ads and whatnot are good. And, you know, when we did Blog Pause, people know who follow me that I was a co-founder of Blog Pause. We did occasional boosts and ads and things, but everything that we did was organic, because we saw the need in the market for a group to get the tribe of pet bloggers together. So as a coach, I really am impressed with the ebook I downloaded from your site. And one of the things on the ebook is the 3 pillars. Can you speak to those?
Yeah, so one of the challenges that, well, new coaches have it, even some more experienced coaches or any entrepreneur really, is when you get into business, you know what it's like at the online space. There's 177 different things that you could do. You got everyone saying, oh, you got to do this, you got to be on here, you got to do that. And coaches get overwhelmed because they're thinking, geez, I don't have enough hours in the day, but I have to do this, and they get frazzled. What I'm really big on is choosing just 3 things, 3 pillars to focus on. And that's where you're concentrating your efforts rather than getting distracted and looking all over the place. With those 3 pillars, they should be something that you enjoy, obviously, because if you don't enjoy doing it, you're not going to do it consistently. And it should be something that works, obviously. So a good example of that, this is kind of a silly example, but let's say, Yvonne, your favorite thing in the world to do is open up your window every morning and yell out at passersby and say, hire me as your book coach or whatever. Now, you're in a more rural area, so you may not have a lot of foot traffic there, but I would think even in a busy city, if you were in New York City with that approach, probably wouldn't be the best approach. Maybe your favorite thing in the world that you bounce out of bed, you love doing it or whatever, that's probably not a good pillar. So should be something that you enjoy, but also something that works. And my 3 pillars, just to give it some context, yours could be and probably will be different than this, but the 3 places I get most of my business, one is from podcasting. So that's with my show, Natural Born Coaches, but also going out on shows like we're doing right now. So there's podcasting on both sides of the mic. There's Facebook, but more specifically my Facebook group, The Coaching Jungle. I get a lot of my clients and customers from there. And then the third way is with email marketing, with daily emails, like I talked about. So I know if I'm doing podcasting, the Facebook group, and daily emails, my business is going to be okay. So I still do other things, like I'm on LinkedIn and I do other stuff, but those are the big 3 pillars that I focus on.
So this daily email, let's talk a little bit about that, because there are a lot of people who say that's too much.
Yep.
You don't think so?
So I was one of those people before I started doing it, by the way. So I'll give a little bit of history, how I got into it. So from 2014 to April 2016, I did email marketing pretty much like everyone else does it. You know, so I would send an email out a week, maybe one every 2 weeks, maybe 2 in 1 week, but it just wasn't consistent. And it was just boring as hell. Honestly, if anyone's ever had insomnia, they could read my emails because they were written to never offend anyone. It was just, yeah, blah. So I was ready to give up my email marketing and cancel my AWeber account in April 2016.
Wow.
And I had a guest on my podcast, and he's a big fan of daily emails. That's what he teaches. And when we were talking off the record afterwards, he's like, well, Marc, why don't you try daily emails? If you're going to cancel your email account anyways, give it a try for 30 days. And I said, what do I have to lose? You know, other than a little bit extra work, obviously. So I decided to give it a 30-day college try. I said, I'll see what happens. And lo and behold, I made $5 million in a month. No, I'm just kidding. I can't say that I made millions of dollars, but what I did notice in that month daily email experiment was I started to get more replies, people answering my emails, which never happened before. Started to get a couple little sales coming in from that. And I thought, maybe there's something to it. So I kept it going. And here we are. I forget what the total is. It's 2,000 and some odd days where I haven't missed a day. And I wouldn't have done that many emails between 2016 and now if it didn't work. So it definitely takes a leap of faith, because I agree with you. I had all the same objections anyone watching this or listening to it has about it. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to annoy everyone. They're going to unsubscribe. They're going to, send death threats, are going to hate me or whatever. But no, what it does is it chases away people who don't resonate with you, probably would never purchase from you anyways. And the people who remain are much more committed, and you have a better relationship. It's a stronger list. So right now my open rate is, give or take, 23 to 25%, which is very high for the size of the list with it. Whereas other people, might have an open rate of 10% or something like that. So I'm a huge fan of it, but I get the objections. Trust me, I had every objection you have as well.
So how do you know what to write in a daily email?
So I use, there's a number of ways to get my ideas, but there's there's a book called Writing Without Bullshit. I don't know if you read that one. I forget the author's name.
Awesome.
I've got it back there somewhere in the shelf, but he had an iron imperative in there. This author said, basically, he asked himself, is he treating the reader's time as more valuable than his own? If a reader is giving a minute, 2 minutes to read your email coming in, are you make sure it's worth their time? I think it's Joseph Burnoff, I want to say, the author of that book. But so that's why I ask myself, like, is this worth their time opening the email? But I get the ideas from everywhere I get it. Stories from my life. I got lots of things happening. Everyone has stories. They may not think about it. They do, but they do. Stories from my clients' lives. Now I keep confidentiality in mind, of course. I get ideas from books that I read. I get ideas from stuff that I watch. I'm constantly jotting down things with my handy dandy moleskin, as I'm doing stuff. I get ideas, Facebook groups. We talked about my Facebook group. If I'm ever stuck, I scroll down the wall, and one of the posts or questions I see there could trigger something. That turns into an email as well. So once you get used to doing it, it's like building a muscle in the gym, a content creation muscle. You'll get ideas coming at you all over the place once you get into that habit.
That's really good advice. That makes a lot of sense. So the Facebook group, how did you start it and how did you grow it to, you have like 20,000 members?
Yeah, we're at almost 22,000 now. So basically, I used to have a Facebook group just for past guests of my podcast. It had a really unique original name. It was called the Natural Born Coaches Past Guest Group or something like that. So that was only for someone that had appeared on my show. That was it. What was happening was I was getting all these requests from coaches and entrepreneurs who had never been on my show requesting to join. And so I'd have to copy and paste an answer. Hey, thanks for requesting join. This for people who've been on my podcast and basically have a nice life. After enough of those, I finally got it through my skull. I thought, maybe I should have a group that's open to anyone who's coach, aspiring coach, interested in coaching, and not just a group of 300 and some that had been on my podcast at the time. So that's where I started the Coaching Jungle. I closed out the podcast group. I started the Jungle, and we had a nice head start. It was pretty easy to get to 500 to 1,000 just because I'd been around for a while and knew a lot of people, invited people in. But once it got to that 1,000 and I kept talking about it, promoting it and stuff like that, it grew really quickly to where we're at now with it. So that was September 2015, just for reference. That's when the group started.
Yeah, and it's a really great group. I'll be putting links to it in my blog post and on YouTube. And it is a great group. I really think that your attention to it is what makes it work. I mean, like you just said, for the emails, it's valuing people's time. And both, one thing I believe in is you can, and I tell my authors all the time, you can actually write your entire book on your blog and people will still buy it. And here's why, because the content you put on the blog is you sharing with the audience that you want to serve. And then they can comment, and then their comments help make the book better. And then the actual book, when it comes out, has so much more valuable content in it than the actual. And the point being, you can give away. Don't be afraid of giving. I meet so many people that are so afraid. No, this is my idea and I can't share it because someone will steal it and they'll make all sorts of money off of it. Well, you and I both know that that's probably not likely to happen, right?
You could hand someone the plan right there to a T, A to Z, and most people aren't going to roll up their sleeves and actually do it. So I agree totally with what you said.
Yeah. And so that then kind of segues me into the whole, if we're kind of giving stuff away and stuff is for free, how do we charge people then for what we do?
That's a huge issue in my world for coaches, and I'm sure in your world too, with authors and things like that. It's a bit of a Jedi mind trick, because people who are starting something that's a hobby turning into a business, it probably comes to them easy because they're passionate about it, and it doesn't feel like work to them. And they think, well, this is so easy for me to paint this, portrait or whatever, that should I really be charging or charging much for it? So when I say a Jedi mind trick, I just mean that the toughest person to convince when you're selling something, whether service, product, or whatever, it's not anyone that's out in the marketplace. It's the person, the man or the woman, looking back in the mirror.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds probably corny, but you have to convince yourself that you or your product is worth it, or you're not going to be able to sell it. So for example, for me, I can sell what I do because I know that I'm worth it. I help people. I've helped a lot of people, and I feel good about it. I like to think I'm a good salesman, but the asterisk on it, like I mentioned, is I have to believe in what I'm selling. So for example, no offense to anyone listening that's into it, I'm not a fan of MLM network marketing. It's just not my thing. Someone once talked me into it. Marc, you got to do this. This is the next big thing or whatever. This was between my real estate and coaching time. So I had time on my hands. I was like, okay. It was for a coffee company. Now, I'm one of the rare Canadians that hates coffee. I'm going to lose my citizenship because I hate coffee and I hate beer. So a Canadian that hates coffee and beer is going to get kicked out of the country. But so what am I doing, trying to sell network marketing for coffee beans and stuff like that? Anyways, I did it. I took on the books on point and stuff like that. I stunk. I don't think I sold anyone on it because I didn't believe in it. I felt kind of, for me, it just wasn't in, I don't want to say gross because there's people that enjoy doing that thing or whatever. It just wasn't in alignment or whatever. So I'd like to think I could sell ice to the Eskimos, but I have to actually like what I'm doing. And I'm guessing people who are tuning into this are probably passionate about something. So there's half the battle right there for selling it.
Yeah, and I agree with you totally, because I originally, when I got started, I was selling Mary Kay. And so that's makeup. And so I believed in it. I used it. I loved it, but I didn't believe in me. I never believed that I was going to be able to do it. And so I struggled and finally gave it up and went on to something else. So yeah, when you find that passion for something that people, first of all, as you said earlier in your 3 pillars, first of all, people have to be willing to pay for whatever it is. It can't be something that they would normally get free all over the world. But when you find that passion, take advantage of it. Be proud. I tell people, and I learned this from back in my early entrepreneur days, to stand in front of the mirror and say, I'm worth $100,000. And I mean, today you would have to say, I'm worth $500,000. $100,000 doesn't go very far. But the point is, say it until you believe it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm reading a book now, which some of your people might want to check out. It's Mel Robbins, who wrote the 5-second rule.
Yes.
Has the high five habit. Not sure if you checked that one out.
No.
What she recommends, it remind me what you just said. Every morning you start the day off high-fiving yourself in the mirror, which seems really, kind of corny and or whatever, but she gives a science behind it and why that works. And there's book recommendation. Check it out. Mel Robbins, The High Five Habit. She has a whole 5 theme going through her books.
Love her. Yeah, love her. She's absolutely fabulous. Love the 5-second rule. Yeah, I mean, that's really, if you can get up in the morning and I'm going to have a great day. Like I said earlier, it's Binghamton. Weather's not to my liking, but I'm not going to let that spoil my day. I mean, and the other thing is, it's your choice. I tell people all the time, you can choose. You can choose to make it a good day, or you can choose to make it a bad day. You can choose to this thing that happened today that didn't work out. You can choose to have that ruin your whole week, or you can choose not to, right?
Yeah, well, there's some people that will find the bad in anything. You know, they could win the Powerball $300 million and they would complain because they couldn't find a parking spot close enough to the lotto place to
Right.
cash it in. My fiance has a friend, you know, it's everything's negative. You know, like it's always the bad stuff, you know, with everything. And I hear some of the conversation on speaker and I'm like, how do you do that? Because it just naturally seeps in or whatever. But I say, you know, she actually has good stuff going on, just she doesn't acknowledge that. It's She could have 9 good things going on but one bad thing, and oh,
Mhm.
it's the end of the world or whatever. So there it goes back to a Jedi mind trick like Star Wars. You have to kind of trick yourself and catch yourself, you know, like I'm not going to entertain negative thoughts, which is hard because you got
Mhm.
what, 60,000 thoughts a day, and the majority of them are negative or neutral. They're not good thoughts. But I always set a goal. I try to be the most optimistic person that I know, and you know, I have better days than others, but I think overall I do pretty good staying positive.
Yeah, I used to tell people life is made up of either major catastrophes or minor inconveniences. So you have to say, is it a major catastrophe? And a major catastrophe is an illness or something, your house burning down or a tornado. Um, Everything else is a minor inconvenience. And if you can look at it that way, it's like, I'm late for a meeting because I'm stuck at a light and there's an accident in front. Minor inconvenience. This is not a major catastrophe. So, it's just a matter of training yourself.
Yeah, and I think there's a silver lining can be found in almost every situation. So, you know, I don't want to be, you know, trying to say if someone loses a child, for example, like
Yeah.
obviously that is probably the worst thing that could happen for a parent. But there have been people who've lost children who started organizations to support other
Yes.
parents. Look at John Walsh from America's Most Wanted. You know, his son was it was awful what happened to his son, was taken way too early, but then John Walsh turned that into a crusade, and he's probably saved thousands of children's or people's lives, you know, with what he
Right.
did with his stuff afterwards. So he turned something bad into something good. So you could turn almost any situation around if you look at it the right way and you pull the silver lining out of it.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. It took me a long time, a long, long time to learn that. But that's the other thing. It takes practice. It doesn't happen overnight, right? Just like becoming a success. You were not an overnight success, even though you look like you were.
Mhm.
Um, so we're getting close to the end of our time. Tell me what you're up to right now that you would like to share with people.
Oh, well, once we're done this interview, I'm going up to Costco to get some. Oh, you don't mean that. You mean like business wise.
Well, not
Yeah.
unless you're inviting us all over for a
You,
party.
you don't want to go outside like I talked about minus 27
No.
Fahrenheit. I am braving the cold to go out and get some groceries. You know, this year I'm working on a number of things. You know, the group programs I have going, those are always fun. So I'm always into that. I'm also starting something with someone I've been connected with for years in the coaching space. Carl Bryan is. Yeah, as someone I'd consider a mentor, and you know, someone who's done a lot. Well, we're going to be doing something to support business coaches in particular that we're just about
Mm.
to roll out. So it's not live yet. It's on its way to being live. But I'm a big fan of that. Just from my background, I'm a big fan of business coaching because I think entrepreneurs need that help. Unfortunately, a lot of coaches who identify as business coaches don't know how to best help that business, you know, whether it be a daycare company, roofing
Mhm.
company, accountant, whatever. There's any business in there. So Carl and I are working on something here for 2022 that will help with that.
Awesome, awesome. So while your focus is on coaches, can you say any kind of coaches? Does it matter what kind of coach?
I've worked with all sorts of coaches, you know, health coaches, relationship coaches, sales coaches, life coaches. It's across the spectrum with it. I tend to work best with coaches who, well, a couple things. First of all, I like the ones that have the big goals. Not saying they have to want to make millions of dollars a year or whatever. I don't like working with if a coach wants to do it as a side hobby, make 500 bucks
Mhm.
a month or $1,000 a month. So I tend to look more at, okay, what's this person's vision? Is it something that excites me as well, more than just saying, okay, I'm going to work with X
Right.
coach, whatever niche.
Right. And that makes perfect sense, because in order to help them to get from A to B has to be something worthwhile, kind of, uh, because I know people want, and they see all those programs flashing about on social media, I can teach you how to make $3 million in 3 days, and that kind of stuff. And the sad thing is people buy into that. But in the end, people do want to make a good income. But I feel it's more important if they come to the table wanting to help other people, in a particular niche, perhaps. So that's kind of what the criteria. I look for authors that aren't looking to become best-selling authors. They can become one. I know I can show them how that happens, but my goal is always to, what are you going to do with this? Because this book is your product. This book is not going to make you a millionaire. It's going to help you build your business. So
Right.
yeah, having that vision, right? Do you help people create a vision if they don't have one?
Well, I think a vision it's very personal, right, to that person. So a lot of times people come to me and it's almost like they want me to give them the blueprint. Okay, here's your life mission,
Yes.
your business goal, or whatever. Or they'll copy mine. Okay, what's your mission statement, definite chief aim in life? And I say, no, it's got to be for you, because that's what's going to motivate you in those dark times. If you're just taking my goals or whatever and imposing them on you, it's not going to work with it. So I help them. I ask questions. I want to poke around. I want to pull stuff out of them that maybe they don't realize. But at the end of the day, it's a very personalized statement for them that we're creating the end goal.
Yes, well, and it's in working with coaches, it's a very personal experience also. So we're over time, but that's all right, because we had a lot of good things we had to cover today, and I can't thank you enough for being on the show. So what I'm going to do is share all of the links that I can about you, where people can find you in your Facebook group, especially, because I think that would be very important. And if you have anything else, Marc, please do send it to me so I can include it. I want everyone to get the best experience that they can from this little show that we did today. So I thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, and stay warm.
Oh, well, you stay warm. Mine is 27 degrees. I'm already like, I live there. All right. Good night, everyone. This is Yvonne DeVita signing off for Smart Conversations.